On God, let's go ahead and get into these UIL playoffs. We done seen some real good matchups, but it looks like a lot of the Houston teams are starting to get phased out. I know Bel Air was set to play Clear Springs this past week. I know these two teams are respectively number 10 Bel Air and 11 Clear Springs, so I knew that was going to be a good matchup. You got to look at Bel Air and Clear Springs after the 7 Lakes game, correct?
Yeah, I got to see the little bit of the end of that, beginning of the Clear Springs Bel Air game, right after 7 Lakes versus Beaumont. Yeah, man, looked pretty good. Yeah, I wanted to say for the whole thing, but Little Mamas was ready to go.
Yeah. Nah, I had brought my daughter to the 7 Lakes Clemens game, so but she loves that. She loved being in those environments. So, it turns out Clear Springs ended up beating Bel Air.
Really?
Yeah, Clear Springs ended up beating Bel Air to move on to semifinal round of the UIL playoffs.
One big thing about Bel Air is the whole starting lineup was juniors. I don't think the whole team was juniors. I was like, junior.
Yeah.
Junior.
That gives them another room. That gives them more room to grow. That means next year they should be better than they were this year.
Yeah, I think they will be. The beginning of the game looked like Clear Springs was running away with it, but you could kind of see Bel Air putting up a fight. When I was getting ready to leave, when I was thinking they were pulling away, I think it was 14-0. And then when I'm getting ready to leave, it was 8-12 or 8-15 or something like that, right? So,
well, they definitely were. They were ranked one after each other, one after the other when it came down to the citywide rankings. Next, I was looking at Cy Ranch versus Lake Ridge. Okay. I wasn't real familiar with Lake Ridge, but I found that they finished 3rd in their division. But again, this is another team that's not in Houston. Cy Ranch is a team that we covered before. We saw them play Cy Springs. I was real interested in seeing what became of this matchup. Well, it turns out Lake Ridge ended up beating Cy Ranch as well. So Cy Ranch was eliminated.
Oh man, I was actually rooting for them.
Yeah, you remember my guy
Savidra?
Nah. I loved Savidra, but I believe he was Clark. He was Cy Springs.
Oh yeah.
I was talking about Josh
Clark.
No,
Green.
Josh Green.
Yeah.
From Cy Ranch. I like.
Boy, I had the fire alarms coming on.
Yeah, buckets. He buckets. Number 5, Thurgood Marshall played a school called Shoemaker. I'm not familiar with Shoemaker.
Never heard of it.
I hadn't either, but they finished 3rd in their division as well. They somehow made it to play a Thurgood Marshall at number 5.
Okay.
So it's impressive. Once you get there, you there now. So if you there, you're supposed to be there. And several teams find out that they're not supposed to be there, or that they run into competition that's significantly better than them. But if you there, it's because you beat enough teams to get there. Well, Shoemaker beat enough teams to play number 5 Thurgood Marshall, Fort Bend School, and then number 24 Stafford. Stafford had a game against Bishop, and what's interesting is Stafford is ranked number 24 somehow with a 33-5 record.
Okay.
Several teams that's ranked ahead of them did not finish with 30 wins. So I thought it was real interesting that they were down at 24, which is still a high ranking for the whole city.
Okay.
But I thought it was interesting they were down at 24 and they won 33 games. They played a school called Bishop I was also not familiar with. And I believe they won that matchup. So Bel Air lost to Clear Springs. 7 Lakes lost to Beaumont United this weekend.
That's a big L.
Ultimately, Beaumont United is now set to play Clear Springs in these semifinals.
Really?
Yeah. So Beaumont United is there for beating 7 Lakes. We're not as familiar with Beaumont United. We can be pretty sure they come from Beaumont.
Yeah.
And number 5. That kid was special, and he looked like the shortest kid on the floor.
Eden too. Yeah.
That kid was special, so they deserve to be here. They got a game against Clear Springs, who again got there by beating number 10 ranked Bel Air. Lake Ridge eliminated Cy Ranch, which means that and Marshall ended up beating Shoemaker, but then they ended up losing to Ellison. So I believe Lake Ridge plays Plano East. Have a set matchup between Plano East and Lake Ridge for Friday, March the 8th. And Stony Point versus Beaumont United. on Friday the 8th.
Because Beaumont United went ahead and took out Chris Springs.
Yeah.
I bet you that would have been a game to go to, man.
Oh, yeah.
That was a tough. 48-49?
I didn't write the score.
I was looking at
1-point game.
48-49.
And then any of these games that are under 50 points, let you know that the teams were playing tough defense and every bucket was hard to get by.
Mm-hmm.
I also have Veterans Memorial set to play Ellison, who got there by beating Thurgood Marshall.
Okay.
Are playing in the semifinals against Veterans Memorial. This matchup is on the 7th. I believe that's Thursday this week. And Amarillo versus Lancaster.
A lot of these games move real fast. I started noticing that. They want these games. They don't want them quick. They don't want to play around.
Yeah. They want to get it done with. I'm upset they aren't more local teams here.
Yeah.
But what do you have?
So I'm looking at Stafford versus Oak Cliff, and then
Dallas.
Yeah. So they seem like there's a pretty good matchup. That's what is that 4A? So it's 4A. So it's a little something out of my comfort zone. But they actually these two teams these are semifinals. So looking at the other stuff, they still got a couple more games to get to the state championship. Right. These are the semifinals, and the winner of these. The two teams or two matchups I looked at, they're going to go to the state championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Carter, they're out of Dallas. The last team they beat Carter out of Dallas, 76-48. That was
a blowout.
Yeah, 76-48. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a mismatch. That's what I was talking about.
Oh.
Some teams you're there because you're supposed to be there. You beat who you needed to beat. But then when you get up to the higher parts of the bracket, the skill level, the difference in skill level can sometimes be like a lot.
Yeah.
Because you remember before going into the Seven Lakes Clemens game, I thought there was no chance Seven Lakes would. Well, not that there was no chance. I thought that they couldn't beat Clemens because Clemens is more talented.
I thought they were overpowered for sure.
Yeah.
I felt the same way. I wanted Seven Lakes to win it. So it kind of hurt not seeing that live in action. I got to see the loss. You got to see the win.
I was real glad to be able to see that matchup. Actually, now's a good time to get into that matchup. You saw my highlight reel.
Man, I'm glad you captured a good amount of that game because I wanted to see what happened.
Yeah, that was so. This game, you go into it knowing that these are two of the best teams the city has to offer. I believe numbers 1 and 3, respectfully, in the city. Well, as far as recapping this game, I remember getting in the first quarter. It was a slow start for Seven Lakes. They were down 10 by the time we finally found the seat in this place. It was hard finding seating. Everybody, it was so many people there. They hit capacity. They stopped selling tickets, if you recall.
Yeah,
and
I
then
couldn't
they
get
had
in.
people standing up.
Yeah.
So it was real hard to find seating. When we finally did find seating, the Seven Lakes was down 10 in the first quarter.
Okay.
But Clemens, they were committing a whole bunch of fouls in the first quarter, which allowed Seven Lakes to close the gap. So then what you saw was Clemens, Josh Clark gets into foul trouble. They're 7-footer.
Okay.
He gets into foul trouble and eventually has to leave the floor for most of the first half.
Oh, wow.
And so that foul trouble leads Seven Lakes to start closing the gap. When he leaves, Clemens goes into a zone defense. It looked like a 2-3 zone. Could have been a 3-2, and a guy was just misplaced.
That makes sense.
But they go into a zone defense without their big man to cover the post. And what you see is Seven Lakes respond to this zone defense by running in transition. They stop running set offenses and they end up running in transition and not giving them time to set this zone up. Without the big man in the paint, Seven Lakes is able to close the 10-point gap.
Well, it looked like you had AJ Bates in there getting in the post. That's what I was going to say. And when you say that,
I've never
now
seen
I notice
him do that so many times.
I bet money they were talking in the huddle saying, "Hey, attack the paint. He's out of the game right now. Joshua Clark's not here. Let's see what we can do while he's out there."
I had no idea that AJ Bates was so skilled in the post. His footwork in the post was sensational. It was crazy.
Yeah, man.
Like, he's so young to know what he knows and to calmly be able to up and under until he gets a pump fake and a guy bites on it. It was sweet. It was sweet. Seven Lakes ended up beating their zone with a fast break. Josh Clark again misses most of the first half in foul trouble, but Brett Norton has a quiet first half because he's getting into foul trouble as well. He's pulled off the floor twice and made to sit for a period of time to avoid getting into more foul trouble.
Did he end up fouling out?
He does end up fouling out in the fourth quarter. Brett Norton fouls out when You see Divine drive to the lane, gives the alley-oop pass to Josh Clark in the post, and Josh Clark ends up missing the shot, but it's because, well, it wasn't the foul on him. The foul was actually on Divine during the drive. That one takes Brett Norton out the game, and I didn't know what they were going to do because Brett Norton plays a huge part defensively and offensively. But I think he brings something more. I think he gives them energy. Yeah. He always on 100.
I think you got a lot of pivotal pieces on your team. Brett Norton is definitely one of those pivotal pieces. Yeah, and even if he's not the best player, he's out there. He's a huge piece on this team. So you see him. I saw him in the highlight reel. He's diving on the floor for a loose ball. You also see him driving baseline to get those buckets when AJ Bates is posted up. Yeah. So I think AJ leans on him too, because in the game that I actually saw, I saw some intimate moments between AJ Bates, him being a senior, and like him culling on his guys, comforting his guys, like, hey, bro, we got this. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can figure this out.
I can see that. I saw when Josh Clark was out, his presence or his absence was felt because they were able to get to the post, those fast break layups and everything. Well, when he comes back in the third quarter, his presence is felt. Okay. They had a hard time getting those layups then. But that's around the time you see Nasir Price start going off. Yeah. This dude, he pulls a deep three after Divine's three on AJ Bates. He pulls a deep three and bangs it. Yeah. After that, he pulls another deep three from the wing just to see how hot he is. We call those heat checks.
I like it. You gotta
call those heat checks. Then after that, he pulls another three at the top of the fourth quarter just to see how hot he is.
See what's
and
up.
That bangs.
Yeah.
At this point, he and Divine are going back to back on these scoring drives. Each time one scores, the other one's scoring. And so it was a real nice game, and at that point it starts getting chippy between Divine and Nas, and then AJ Bates is actually a primary defender on Divine. And so you start seeing guys get chippy. Guys are running their mouth. They doing a little more pushing than they were doing before. It was a great game. Yeah. That's what you like to see, right?
We want to see all that.
That's what
Get
you
the
like
popcorn out, baby.
Exactly.
You're watching it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say seeing Nasir Price too, kind of getting into that because you actually brought it up before that he was the succession plan next, and I was like, what? I really thought that I was like, what? Not seeing these the game I saw and seeing
Nas is kind of timid. He can be.
He wasn't timid here.
Yeah, not here and not in the later game as well.
Yeah.
But I think prior to that point, I've seen him be a little timid. If he's got what I saw from him in this game and in the game you covered, if he got that in him, I need to see more.
Exactly. I was gonna say for an underclassman, that's why I think he takes a step back. Because he's like, hey, AJ's here. Let me. AJ's here. AJ's got it. AJ's like, nah, come on, bro.
Yeah,
let's get it.
Nah, young Nas gotta come with it because now I know what he's capable of.
Bro, when he came up and did the reverse layup, I was like, yo. I actually saw this slow mo. He was up there.
Before that, there was like he backed the guy down and did a little pump fake to one side, turns around. The footwork was excellent. Yeah. Fadeaway jumper from mid-range. It was sweet. Yeah. I ain't never seen him do that. Yeah. Well, this game was cool. The biggest thing that happened in this game, well, there was two real takeaways from this game. Number one, even in losing, Divine was the best player on the floor. He's even better than I thought he was. When we covered him before, we knew he was good.
Mr. Highlight.
Divine is the guy.
Yeah.
He is that dude. And he's a senior now, which sucks that he don't have that other year to come back and try to chase this same championship.
Yeah.
But he was the best player on the floor for the entirety of the game.
Man.
I also, special shout out to his boy, Aziz Olajuwon. I didn't know he had it in him. I didn't know he had it in him, but that kid is real good. He pulls mid-range jumpers. He's got height on him. I believe he's standing like, 6'4", 6'5", like a bigger guy.
Yeah.
He's pulling these jumpers and stretching out the defense too, though. He stretches out the defense. You gotta see it like this. When he's out on the perimeter, a guy like Divine who likes to drive the lane
has someone to dish it to.
But also because he can hit that shot, because Aziz can hit that shot, you got his defender can't hang out in the paint.
Exactly.
He can't play help defense when you see Divine driving.
100%.
He has to stay on Aziz, which is excellent if you're those kinds of players. Because the moment he comes off, when I got a highlight in there where Divine drives to the paint and three defenders crash on him in the paint, and he kicks it out for the late three for Aziz Olajuwon. Yeah. It was sweet. Look, the worst thing that happened in this game, at the end of the game, there was about 20 seconds on the clock, and the score was tied. And Clemens allows Seven Lakes to run the clock down until they find that last shot from Tillman, number 33, the floater that ended up winning the game.
Okay.
Clemens allowed them to milk the clock down to where there was only one shot left, and then gave them the shot. It was it was the worst decision of the game. Somebody, a leader on that team, a coach, anybody should have said, you need to put some pressure on them and force the shot to be bad, or force them to turn that ball over, because we cannot let them milk the last 20 seconds and come up with the last shot. These guys were scoring back to back. So it was bound to be whoever had the ball last was going to finish.
Yeah, I was going to say, getting that phone call after the game, we like not talk about this stuff, but I wanted to talk about it because I said, what?
Yeah, man.
I thought I heard static on my phone. What?
I couldn't wait to talk to you about it, but, that's what we like to do. We like to hold our reviews of these games until we sitting right here, so that we not to give it away to each other, our opinions on it. I was sitting in front of a guy, Mr. Donnie, I met from Seven Lakes.
Okay.
Apparently, he's had several kids go through Seven Lakes, and he was calling these guys by their first names, their nicknames. He knew everybody on the floor. And so he was a real big fan of Isaiah Santos. Apparently, he coached him in KYF.
Okay.
So he knew the kid personally. Well, we chopped it up. I had a good talk with him. He gave me some insight into the Seven Lakes family, and he pointed out that Isaiah Santos is the nephew of former NBA player Nene.
No way.
Nene was at the game.
Boy. Oh,
he was at the game watching. He saw them beat Clemens.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Seven Lakes Donnie. I made a good friend.
Hey, one time for that boy Donnie.
One time for Donnie.
I like it.
Let's talk about the one you covered.
Oh, Seven Lakes played Beaumont United.
Beaumont United.
Yeah, so they So they got into a nice little scuffle with Beaumont United. I thought it was a scrap. There were some points in the game where I felt like the energy was there. It's a different type of feel in that game.
Yeah.
It was a nice game. I think AJ Bates once again was leading his team. Mm-hmm. He led his team through the first half.
AJ Bates with the haircut is just a different guy.
Man, he looks
it's gotta be the haircut.
It's like Drake with a beard. I like it. I mean, you could tell the energy and the intensity he had in this game. It's playoffs. It's win or go home. And you could see he wanted that throughout this whole game.
Right.
So yeah, me and my daughter sat down. We get to that first quarter. I think we got there a little bit before the first quarter started. Mm-hmm. And it was just a trade-off the whole game. AJ Bates did a lot of the handling of the ball. But Nas was still present. I could see that they actually talked. I think they talked about it. Nas is a succession play.
Based on the highlights that I saw from that game, I think the game that I watched against Clemens, I think he really found himself in that game, because you could see his energy, you can see his charisma showing, and you can see this guy just gaining confidence with each bucket that dropped. When he started draining threes back to back, there was no going back from that. Naturally, he was going to show up in that game you watched and take big buckets as well. Yeah,
there was a point in the game where him and Dotson from Beaumont kind of get a little easy little push.
Yeah.
And they're both number 11. So in my head, I'm like, he's like, I'm the real number 11. You know what I'm saying? So you could tell that it was a different type of energy throughout the game. But for me, Brett was quiet. Brett was quiet throughout the game. He did have buckets. He got some good shots up. And for me, the way the game script for me was laid, they played a great game. Mm-hmm. I actually caught some of the kids at Seven Lakes when I was walking out the game. I ended up telling AJ Bates. I don't know if Brett, I think Isaiah Santos was right there. Hey, man, good game. They played a great game. You could see the emotion, man, especially when you're a senior.
Donnie did tell me that Isaiah's a freshman.
Sheesh.
That's a big freshman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got
an and
you notice how aggressive he is.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of freshmen that are that aggressive and that confident in themselves to play the way he plays. So we got to keep an eye out for Isaiah Santos. Isaiah Santos in the next 2-3 years might be really something to see. He could take high school basketball by storm.
I would like to see Isaiah Santos and Isaiah Price do work next year. I think I could see them two doing some work.
Nas is going to be a senior next year.
Yeah.
That means you got one more year to really make your mark. And if you can do what I saw you do in these last 2 games, it's going to be a great year for you. as long as you stay aggressive.
You got Brett Norton and AJ leading the team this year. That's what happened. That's what we got. I think Nas Price and Isaiah Santos are the two next year. We'll see that. We'll see that.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what becomes of AJ Bates Jr. because that's not a guy you want to see put the ball down. I want to see where he's going to college. You know, what's his role going to be? What are they going to see him? I'm going to be real curious to check that out.
The biggest deal, though, I don't think I really addressed how Seven Lakes got this game running away from them.
Right. Because they did.
It's a few because it was a few buckets. It was just a couple buckets that could have fallen if they were a 3-ball, a transition layup. There was actually a couple highlights that I didn't get in there that were great 3 points, but they were down 6 or they were down 8, and it's like, man, they just a couple more buckets shift the momentum, and the game's a whole different ball game. But if you look at the highlights, Beaumont United got those buckets.
Yeah.
Riding through the city, yeah, you know I keep